Well, he has been on the headlines talking about the economy and, of course, measures to bring down the high cost of living that has had Kenyans cry for help and, of course, asking the government to do something about it. Until recently, they are not seeing eye to eye with his former and, of course, ally who termed four as Emmanuel Umoja, one Kenya leader, Raila Odinga. But until recently, a 2-hour meeting that happened in a city hotel had a deal that was struck. Today, we ask the questions to party leader of the Safina Party, Jimmy Wanjigi, and of course the former presidential aspirant in the 2022 general elections. Here is that conversation. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Really
good to be with you again. Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Asante.
Let's start from the beginning. The meeting you had with the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga. How long had it been before the two of you met?
That's a very good question. We had a breakfast meeting soon after the elections. I think it was about February last year. Just to recap what had happened in the year 2022. And it was a very good session. The important thing is that, we are friends. We have been friends for the longest time.
How long?
Some people think we became friends in 2017. But I first met Raila all the way back in 1991, before even he was detained. I think it was before he was detained by Moi for the multipartism, the 2A issue. So I've known Raila for a very long time. And we have worked deeply together for many, many years, even when we have been on different sides of the divide. We have had the kind of friendship that is very deep, very, very deep. And it was good to catch up,
Yes.
to review 2022. And then we met again for lunch the other day. And I don't know why there is so much speculation. It was just friends having lunch. Yeah? Emmanuel, you talk about the divisions you may have had in 2022 because you are calling him a foe. He was not a foe. He just chose a partner called Uhuru Kenyatta, of which I could not reconcile with in terms of how is that the future of Kenya. And this is where we had a problem. And this problem started soon after the 2017 election. In 2018 February, Raila was sworn in at Uhuru Park as the people's president. And I think you need to understand the context of the people's president.
Yes.
When the people elevate somebody to the people's president, he is above the constitution of the land. That's what it principally means. We said that the constitution is not being followed. The laws have not been followed. So the people have taken it in their own hands as they can. And it's enshrined in the constitution. And elevated Raila to people's president. Now, the next journey from there is to get him the office. So we had structured a direction to make sure that he takes over State House. Because he's the people's president. No, Emmanuel, you're laughing. Smiling, but it's not illegal. Who told you that?
We had a president that
the
had been
power
declared.
is donated. It is donated to representatives. When the people take it back, and we took it back, we stated who our president is. So when he went for a handshake, to many of us, it was, why are you going to somebody who is inferior? You have been elevated. Why are you going to Uhuru Kenyatta, who has declared himself president of the Republic of Kenya? And I say that because he went to a singular election. That election, no matter whether it went through court or what, really did not stand the scrutiny. They said 7 million people came out to vote. I mean, we were all here. It was a sham, the second election. So we parted on that score. Did not see why he went to a president of the Republic of Kenya when he was even above that president. And secondly, one who had blatantly broken the constitution of this land. So we sat and watched.
So what did you discuss in that meeting?
You mean last week?
Yes.
What did we discuss?
You had 2 hours. We were waiting outside for 2 hours. You came out and you did not address the journalists for that.
Well, let me say this, because I want to be very clear. What we discussed is the general state of Kenya. And beyond that, I'm not going to tell you. That is between him and I, and it's not for dissemination of information.
But Kenyans want to know, Jimmy.
We discussed Kenya, we discussed the state of the nation, and really, beyond that, unless we are addressing it together, jointly to the people of Kenya, that is not something I intend to speak about.
Okay. Before that meeting, you had spoken to the media as well, saying that mandamanos and the demonstrations are encouraged because that's the way Kenyans will express their anger with the government. And that statement came just a week after Raila said he's supporting another round of demonstrations this year. You seem to talk or to speak in one voice preceding that event. Are you planning to join him on the demonstrations if they come?
Let me say this, because you're trying to connect some path so that we close the gap of speculation. I said we have given the president 3 months. I have given the president 3 months to rectify the economic situation in this country. Because it is not a secret. This whole country, all of us, are feeling like the economy is collapsing. The few that aren't are very lucky. They are very fortunate. And I've said that we have had too much from him. He has talked for too long. He is suffering a credibility deficit with us. Okay?
Yes.
And we are tired of the talk. We are tired of the words. We are tired of the propaganda. We actually want to feel it, that there is an actual turnaround in our lives. Because we are not here to just be given stories and we are going through pain. 3 months. And after those 3 months, if that turnaround is not felt, and recognize that we are going to go around and ask Kenyans whether they feel it or not. I was in Kirinyaga yesterday. I asked them what they feel. I was in Meru the other day. I asked them. And those were funerals I attended. But that is not going to be the forum. I'm going to ask Kenyans what they feel. Wapumue, watuambie. Are you feeling this pain or not? And if the general consensus is that he has not changed the way forward, then some of us will clearly announce the direction this country, we intend to take this country.
Are you going to go into those meetings with Raila Odinga as well? Or you'll do it separately?
Well, let me say this. When we met, I think it's important to understand that when you have a crisis in a country, as we believe we have, then it's important for leaders to bring down walls that separate them and converge thinking. So don't just mention Raila Odinga. There could be many others that converge in this space of thinking. And people, we hope, will bring down their walls, because we're talking about our country called Kenya and 50 million people. You must remember, this is a minority president. He won by 200,000 votes. All right? And you had 8 million that did not vote. He is a clear minority president in terms of representation of the people. If you look at the polls the other day, and it's not that I'm saying they are credible or not credible, but maybe we can use it as an indicator. He said that 84% of Kenyans do not feel you're going the right way. So if you take that 84, I like numbers, Emmanuel.
I know.
And you say 50% must be the opposition, because it was a 50-50 election. The 34 on top of that, which add up to 84, right, must be from his side. So with 50, he has lost 34, who feel the country is not going in the right direction. Those are clear indicators that something is wrong, and that he, in his position, that he stabilized the economy and other things, is in a minority situation. They are talking to themselves.
Okay. Okay. So, as you see, near the close of this, that part of the discussion, are you now going to rejoin ODM and join Azimio? Are you going to do that?
Emmanuel, as I like to quote my friend George Saitoti, and he was a very good friend of mine, the late George Saitoti. He had a very famous saying after Rainbow was created outside Norfolk, and I was there. Watch my steps. Watch my steps.
Wow. What are these steps that we should watch?
See, watch my steps. Am I walking here? So as I walk, watch my steps.
You recently, or before the other general election, you really criticized Raila, saying he betrayed Kenyans and betrayed you as a friend. What changed along the way?
I've told you about the betrayal. He went to somebody, in my view, and to many people's view, that was not legitimate and was not at his level, and signed an agreement and had a handshake.
Okay. Will you now
that was the
fences?
betrayal.
Okay.
Now, beyond that, I've told you that we have brought down those fences. We have brought down those walls. Because we must have a convergence to deal with what we are informed by many of our supporters and friends and people, the life that we are living. We have a crisis in this country, and this country is economic. Okay. The crisis, is economic. That is the problem we are facing.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but the last one on this part. Raila Odinga has a lead as well in Azimio. That's the former president, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. Are you also going to bring down the walls that are separating the two of you with him?
I'm sure if we have a convergence on the national crisis that we have, we'll bring down any wall. We are not even refusing to bring down walls that may exist between us and even UDA. No. We have a big problem here. Big one, Emmanuel.
Yes.
We'll bring down any wall, right? So that we can talk for the interests of 50 million Kenyans.
So
that,
yes,
converge into a path that is saving the lives of 50 million Kenyans.
So there is room for reconciliation between you and the former president?
Absolutely, why not? Why not?
How soon?
It's not personal. Our fights were never personal. Why wouldn't I sit down with Uhuru? I think many people don't seem to understand. Uhuru and I grew up together. We've known each other from primary school.
At St. Mary's?
Literally the whole of at St. Mary's, primary school and high school. Our children went to school together. His wife was even our neighbor out in Karen for the longest time. We have been friends. We have done things as teenagers together. When you have raw life that we all do as teenagers. All right? We are family friends. My father was a minister in his father's government. So we have known each other for the longest time.
Okay. We recently, so you've already alluded to it, that you were in Mount Kenya in two counties, Meru and Kirinyaga. And there've been talk about the region, of course, the discussion about the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua and Ndindi Nyoro, the MP for Kiharu. And there's some quotas saying that Ndindi Nyoro should now be given a chance in 2027 to run as the deputy president and in 2032 as president. What would be your reaction to that discussion?
Well, let me say that that is a discussion being entertained by UDA. And really, that's their business. That is UDA business. They can discuss and plan as they wish. That's democracy. My view, and I stated it yesterday, is that I personally and politically have no issue with any Mount Kenya leader. None. None. If they are talking about the seat called vice president, that's not a seat I have said I want. I have been in the race for presidency, and that is where my eyes are.
So you're
And the
still on
current
the
holder
ballot?
of that office is one William Samoei Ruto. That is where my eyes are. UDA can debate all they want about their seats, about their democracy. It is their right. Let them chatter, let them fight, let them do whatever they want. This is Kenya. Waendelee.
But you seem to attack the government, the Kenya Kwanza government. You said they're not delivering the mandate, they're not helping the people of the mountain. Don't you? What is the direction? What's the end game?
You know, when you look at the government, and we're talking about the UDA government, Kenya Kwanza government, the bulk of its votes came from Mount Kenya region. The bulk of its votes. There are some estimates that go to 49%, others go to 57%. Because I think some people, when they're doing their numbers, maybe they didn't include Nairobi. But that is the biggest block of votes that UDA government, Kenya Kwanza government got from any part of Kenya. That same region is 42% of GDP. 42% of GDP. Which means they are the highest taxpayers. If you didn't know. They are half of the GDP of this city called Nairobi. If you look at the wealth of counties, 7 of the 10 are from the same region. So the tax pain is felt most there. And the promises were given to them that they will come out of their pain, which was so-called created by dynasties, and now they are going to see some light. Okay? Some light for Mama Mboga, for watu wa boda boda. That now you'll have no more pain. It is just whatever the dynasties were doing, you are now going to start enjoying. It is now 15, 16 months on.
It's too early to judge the government.
No, it is not. It is not. A template is created from the very beginning. You've never seen ever in the history of this nation a finance bill or act which is tax measures being taken to court, having such controversy, having public participation and saying, do not pay, we cannot pay, we don't want to do it. You've never seen. And you're seeing it because William Ruto has got to increase tax revenue because he has chosen that path to deal with the debt question. Today, I saw an IMF statement that was ratifying in the board the extended facility to Kenya that was approved in November last year. It's nothing new, it's just board ratification. Now, if you read most of the context of that report, it is asking the government to increase tax, that they are not connecting enough revenue, that their shortfall even in this quarter of what they said and projected, yeah, is big. They're talking about a shortfall on their projections of 79 billion of tax revenue. So you can see this region is going to suffer and has suffered and is suffering the most, yet they gave the most votes.
Okay.
So when you talk about cost of living, when you talk about punitive measures that are taking away biashara, because when your cost of your product, from tax to interest rates to everything go up, there are few buyers. Their soko goes. They are suffering the most. They are literally the top of every pyramid, the bottom pyramid or the top pyramid.
Okay.
And they're the bulk of voters in Kenya Kwanza. So I'm telling them, I'm asking questions. Unfortunately, those were funerals were at. So you can't do siasa mingi.
Are you planning to be their kingpin, the Mount Kenya kingpin?
No, I don't believe in that. You see, I'm not into that parochial politics. My politics as you can see, even with the branding that we tried to do from last when we were in the race, is very national. I'm very national oriented. Because like now when we are talking about the economy, it affects everybody, not just Mount Kenya. Every single person is feeling this pain. I'm not talking for a region. So I am not that person who believes there must be a kingpin. I would love to see a country that has very strong parties, an ideology and philosophy, so that we break these barriers of tribe.
Okay.
We come there together with minds and hearts about an economic ideology, a political philosophy. So when William Ruto, for example, stands up, because he used to talk about Mama Mboga and watu wa boda boda and dynasty. When he stands up and says, it is very unfair, it is very selfish for those who have got a house who are earning salaries to not want to give to the person a levy for housing for somebody who does not have a house. That now is a form of socialism. I think had he sold the concept of socialism to the bulk of his votes, for example, to Mount Kenya vote, that what I mean by Mama Mboga and watu wa boda boda is I'm going to take from you who is earning, and you have to have some communal spirit. Your profits go to helping others, not to yourself. I think you will have a very different conversation. Because I know they don't believe in socialism. They are pure capitalists. Pure and absolute capitalists. They believe in profit. Okay? That's what they believe in. And I think most Kenyans are there, by the way. Most Kenyans, they believe in a form of social justice. But they are capitalists. We are all capitalists.
Yes.
If he sold the ideology of socialism, you may find he would not have gotten those votes. Okay. And that's what I'm saying. The ideology should be entrenched. It removes barriers of tribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you rate President William Ruto's 16 months in office, as you mentioned? What grade?
On what scale?
Percentage. Out
1
of
to 10?
100%.
100%?
100%?
No. I would not even give him. I probably would give him maybe 30, 35%. And I think I'm being very generous. And I'll tell you why. Until recently, before his fight with the judiciary, and before I saw his budget, and I saw his gazettement of exchequer account, and I saw the housing levy, I said the draconian tyrannical behavior of impunity, of breaking law, of using the police to intimidate any opposition voice, had he seemed to have accommodated an attitude, I'm following the law. I don't need police to intimidate anybody. I will do my politics, right? Everyone has their space. And that is why I would have given him a 30, 35%.
Okay.
But on the economy, I give him a flat 0.
Let's get into that economy now.
So that, before you go on, Emmanuel,
Uh-huh.
now that was before I saw some of the things that they have done with their budget. I've seen they've done with the housing levy, where there's blatantly breaking the law. And this is where now, and then of course the recent outbursts. What's going on here? So on that 35, I reserve to see what happens in the next few months.
All right. Let's now get into that topic that you've just introduced about the economy. You've been very vocal. It's your pet subject. We discuss it. Are we in a debt crisis right now?
Absolutely. And I think the president was very good at bringing it out. It was good that he voiced it. I think he spoke late. I think he spoke at an interview about a month ago, and then he spoke last week. And I saw him speak again yesterday or the day before, where he says 7 shillings of every 10 shillings he's collecting in tax is going to debt. Now, he said also that it is the single biggest problem that has literally kept him up for 1 year.
He said it is his headache.
His headache. There you go. Upwards. Because that is the problem we are facing. I want us to just go back a bit. In relation to 10 years ago, when Kibaki handed over power to Uhuru, for every 10 shillings of our revenue, Kibaki was paying 1 shilling and 40 cents to debt. That is the difference. And Kibaki's target was to get to 0.80 cents. Of every 10 shillings, 80 cents going to debt. Now our figures are showing a bit different to the president's. He's saying 70%. We have roughly about 78%. Because you have a very big crisis. The makers of our constitution, the new one, had a lot of foresight. They fortunately anchored our debt, our obligations, our public finance management in our constitution. And in an act called the Public Finance Management Act. Before, there was a lot of leeway on what you need to do, can do. And at the end of the cycle, it says there is something called presidential warrants. The budget is not activated until the president signs. So it holds him personally responsible for any movement of money. Now, this debt we audited. And when we audited it to July 2022, and it was a forensic audit, we attached it to the laws of our country. And we found that in 10 years of the previous government, Parliament approves debt for the budget. Parliament had approved 2.3 trillion.
Is this the domestic debt or the total debt?
Parliament, there's nowhere where Parliament has approved domestic debt. Because the law says this. You can only take debt for development in a medium term. That is over 1 year. And you can only borrow in the short term, within 1 year, 5% of the previous tax audited returns. So if we got a tax revenue of 1 trillion, that is 50 billion.
Yes.
And that borrowing short term must be paid within the same year. And that is normally the overdraft at CBK or what are called treasury bills. That's the only domestic debt that is approved for cash flow. Now, when you talk about the domestic debt that you're asking, Parliament does not approve it. And that's the anomaly we found. In the appropriations development, because it must be attached to a project, there's nowhere where domestic debt has funded a development project. Okay? Yet 5 trillion has been taken. Nowhere it has funded a bridge or a borehole in this country. It's not in the budget for development. But you find in the expenditure estimates, you find it there in terms of paying back domestic debt. So its approval to take is not there, but paying out, it is there, which is a complete unconstitutionality. All right?
Okay.
Now, that is a big problem, because then what did it do? So we bothered to extend the audit we did in 2022 right up to June 2023. And the figures look like this, just to give you an overall summary. There is something called deficit, which is what you borrow for. The shortfall between revenue and your expenditure requirements.
Okay.
So we said, let's look at our expenditure over the last 10 years. That expenditure was 14.6 trillion. We removed debt payments as an expenditure. Any debt payments, any interest payments. And please, Emmanuel, this is in books of government. We didn't look for figures anywhere else.
You got
just
the
the government
from
books.
The CBK?
No, they're there. The CBK, Treasury, the appropriation bills that are there, it's all there. KRA has its tax returns, so everything is there. These are government books, no other information, because they publish them. And you know the problem with Kenyans, I was telling some people recently, is that You know, the Mzungu used to say, if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. Okay?
Yeah. The
Now,
devil
not
is
only
in-
do we
is
not
in the
read, we
details.
also don't do hesabu. So we did the hesabu. This is expenditure, removing only one column called debt payments. Higher. We said, then what is the actual tax revenue? In other words, what did KRA collect? Not what is promised, not what is targeted. What did they collect in those 10 years? 13.3 trillion. What is the difference there, Emmanuel?
About 1 trillion,
1 trillion? Right.
around about, yeah.
So that is the deficit. Correct? Now, if that is the deficit, 1 trillion, right? What did the government borrow? We found 7 trillion. 7.7 trillion was what was borrowed. But only 1 trillion was required in 10 years. So what did 6 trillion go to do? Because it means it was not required for any item in the budget. It didn't finance the budget. What is it financing? 6 trillion, remember 1 trillion is a deficit of 10 years. So 6 trillion is a debt taken that is 60 years worth of deficit, of
Mathematically.
shortfall, mathematically. 60 years that we have to pay now. That's why 7 shillings plus of tax revenue is going to this thing.
And how does this debt affect the common Mwananchi? Because
I'll-
how does it affect me?
I'll tell you, it is the cost of living. It is the biggest reason why the shilling is going down. And the shilling going down, and we're a country that imports so much from raw materials for any of the factories, to oil, and so on, cooking oil, all these things. Cooking oil is imported. We have no palm oil. Crude palm oil is brought in, right? Refined and sold to us. It is a cost in the kitchen. All right? Gas is a cost. Petroleum is a cost because of transport. So the shilling going down affects everything that we buy. That's why you go to the shop today, you find my 1,000 shillings last week bought me 10 items. Now it's only buying me 5. What has happened? My basket for the same amount of money is getting smaller and smaller.
Is it so? It's the reason why the cost of fuel.
Yes, the cost of,
of
yes,
unga
it is
and
the
everything.
biggest reason. All right? I see the government trying to say many times, I like this argument, oh, the cost of food, tumeleta chini. I was just reading a US aid development agency report on income versus food expenditure. Which are the countries that spend the most on food as an item, not even the food basket, food, right? So what proportion of one's salary or income on average is spent on food, right, in comparison to the lowest? Do you know the highest in the world is Kenya and Nigeria and Bangladesh, where 50% of our income goes to food, one item. The lowest is America. And like in Switzerland, they are at 3%. And you imagine the kind of money they earn. Food is a 3% issue. It's nothing. I earn 10,000 shillings. I'm spending 300 on food. That's what it means when you say 3%. You see?
Yeah.
That is the difference between us and the developed world. So when people say food price has come down, listen, in relation to what? We are the highest in the world. I will share that report with you. We are the highest in the world with Nigeria and Bangladesh. All right? This is the reason. This is killing us. And you see, we compared this to other countries. We said, where have countries reached the extent where 7 shillings of 10 is going to debt? Now, they normally say, if you are passing 3 shillings of debt of your revenue going to debt, you enter a debt trap. Okay? So we passed that long time ago.
Okay.
So we are going to have to keep borrowing, right? right, and raising taxes to keep paying back the same debt.
All right.
Okay?
So now that we are here, Jimmy, how do we get out of this situation, and what are our options? Yes.
I put across several options that are available to Kenya. There are three. The first one is that we sit down with all the creditors, right, and address the debt issue and ask for rescheduling, better terms.
Okay.
That option, unfortunately, because of the different debts we have Chinese debt, we have what you call the Paris debt, Carrick Club debt, and we have London debt with sovereign bonds, and, like Euro bonds and so on. It's very difficult to put people in a room. But there's also another trigger. It says if we even call for such a meeting, the Euro bonds must be paid first before we can sit down. So we have a problem. The next, which is what William Ruto chose to do, is to try and raise taxes. And that will not solve the problem. Because you can never raise enough revenue to solve this deficit, this problem, this debt payment that I'm talking about. So, the third, he say, why don't we do this? Let us distress. Let us distress. Ghana did it. Lebanon did it. Zambia did it. Ethiopia is doing it. Argentina's done it. Greece did it. The cost of that is very heavy. It is a very painful dose of medicine.
What is the
Because
pain?
the first crisis you have is that the banks want to close. And I like to use the most recent example of Ghana. Where Ghana, I saw a clip circulating the last few days about a Ghanaian minister saying removing tax. But I think it was a clip that was before the debt distress, not one that came after. So Ghana decided that they cannot pay this debt. They had reached 70%, where we are. And they said they cannot pay this debt anymore.
Yeah.
So IMF chaperoned, right, what you call a debt distress exchange meeting, where people agreed to take what you call a haircut. So if you are a bank with 1 billion shillings or 1 million shillings bond, they agreed on a haircut of 30%. So your bond was exchanged from 1 million to 700,000. If it was 100,000, 70,000. If you had an interest rate of 10%, they told you take 5%. If your term period, length of period of the bond was 5 years, they said now take 10 years. Take it or leave it.
Wow.
Now what immediately happens is that you then have a problem with the depositors in the bank. So that cost to the banks ended up going to the depositors. So if you have a deposit of 10,000 in the bank savings account, they came for 30%. All right?
Okay.
If you had dollars, because one of the things that comes out of this, there is a run on your local currency. Nobody wants to hold it. All right? They come for your dollar account, change it into shillings, or the local currency, that it was the CD, and they take 30%. But you had other problems that came with it too. You had huge inflation. We have an inflation rate now of 7%. Right? If you imagine it going to 50%, because that's what happened in Ghana, and this was just last December, December 2022, about 13, 14 months ago, right? When they did this. They had inflation immediately within a month of 50%. So anything you buy, you are paying more than half in addition. All right? You also had a very big drop in their currency. Nobody wanted to hold it. It went beyond 100%. Drop within a very short time. So this is that pain, as you remember I was saying, that pain gets really aggravated because literally everything about our lives comes to a standstill.
So what you're saying is we should not pay that debt, or what you're saying?
Now mine is the fourth option. I've added because I talked about the tax revenue. The fourth option. Suspend any payments that are not legal, that are what you call odious to us. that are not part of any budget, that we never approved, that never went to the laws of this country, that never went to a development project.
How much is that according to your records?
More than 70% of this debt.
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to look at those records.
Yes. More than 70% of this debt. Please, Emmanuel, you know the debt now is at 11 trillion. It's a never-ending cycle. It's now 11 trillion. When we did the audit in July 2022, it was 8.4, 8.6. It's now 11 trillion. Even after, in the last 1 year, we've paid almost 2 trillion in debt payments. It's still going up. It's a never-ending cycle, and it will keep going up, no matter what we do.
So how do we break that cycle?
You say, we suspend what is not legal. We put it aside. We are not going to pay it.
Who pays it?
What do you mean, who pays it? If it didn't come to us, did not follow our laws, why should we pay? The people who took that risk, who did not follow our laws, are responsible. And in fact, if we have been paying, whether it is interest, because we've been paying interest on that debt, that is illegal, we should be claiming it back. And there are situations that have succeeded. Okay?
Which, like, do you have any countries in mind that did the same thing you're proposing?
Two specifically. Malaysia and Mozambique. Mozambique had a very similar bond to our Euro bond, which we are paying this year. And it was 2 billion. And they called it the Tuna Bond. So-called supposed to come and help the fishing of tuna for fish farmers along the coast of Mozambique. As you know, it's beautiful and nice and long. So the government came up with this scheme. We'll get financing to buy you all trawlers, all these lovely boats, and you will, we are going to fund your investment, right? Now, it was a scam. The fish farmer never got those boats. That money was not passed properly in Parliament. It was advanced by a bank called Credit Suisse, half of it, and the other Russian bank called RVM. It was eaten by that regime at that point.
Okay.
So citizens went to court, to their constitutional court. And the constitutional court, even when Parliament was trying to defend, said, no, this is illegal. The government should not pay it. Do you know they got refunded that money? The interest that they paid and the principals they had paid.
Okay. As we wind up, because of time, because we're running short of time, you have been predicting a few things and some of them have come true in terms of the economy and everything. What's your prediction of the year? And you also had given an ultimatum to the president of 3 months. What will happen after the 3 months? And what are you seeing in future in terms of the shilling and the economy and everything?
I am seeing, as you can see, the shilling keeps going down. But what I'm seeing is debt distress. I am seeing the president, in fact, when he talked the other day, and he said that, this problem is his biggest headache. He also said, and as I'm trying to solve it, the courts are refusing me from collecting tax, doing my programs. I could see he's looking for a scapegoat to come and tell us now he's in distress. And he has to distress on this debt, default on this debt, it is called. Now, if he does that, I'll be saying that he is personally responsible for bankrupting Kenya by choosing a path when he had all the opportunity the last 15 months to take us a different route. He took us the wrong route and he's taken us to bankruptcy. And at that point, we as Kenyans have got to ask ourselves whether we are going to allow somebody who has taken us to bankruptcy. Because when you can't pay your debts and you are starting to ask the sovereign, we are the sovereign. That's one thing you need to understand, Emmanuel.
Yes.
And Kenyans should understand. When a government is taking a loan, it is just our agent. We are the guarantors. Like a SACCO. When you guarantee somebody the loan that they take, if they don't pay, it comes to you. A bank, right? It comes to you. So if he takes us to bankruptcy, then we go to ask Kenyans whether we trust this manager, because he's just a manager of our enterprise called Kenya, whether we trust him to get us out of the same problem. And in most cases, in private companies, you fire the manager and create a new management, that takes you out of the crisis.
So what happens after the 3 months, lastly, because we've run out of time completely?
As I said, watch my steps.
All right. Thank you very much. That has been Jimmy Wanjigi, former presidential aspirant, and of course, the party leader for Safina Party. He says we should watch his pace, watch the steps that he's going to take in the next few days and a few months to come. That is the much time that we had for you. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.